Hi, how you doing, and welcome back to the video on the channel. What we have for you today is our midfielder tier list going into the new season of FPL. We did our striker tier list a couple of videos ago. Go check that out if you haven't already. This video is all about midfielders. So as you're getting your FPL team sorted, it's really kind of trying to balance a mixture of being able to afford the players, getting the most points, looking at the fixtures, pre-season form, and all of that. So without any more talking, let's get into the video. So hopefully it'll help you out today. The tier list is as follows. So the bottom tier is at a push, which kind of means like, yeah, they're an option because we've got 10 different options for you today. There's still an option, but you'd have to do a bit of talking in order to convince me to get him in my team. Give me a week or so really means, there's maybe a bit of turmoil in the team. We're kind of unsure about transfers and moving forward. Maybe they've not played much in pre-season. We're yet to wait and see. There's a bit of things up in the air. Can't blame you. Is they're a good option. I can't blame you for taking them. Maybe they won't be in my team necessarily as a first choice, but at some point during the season, you're probably going to have them in your team. And then the top tier is you won't win without him. These are the players that I think you really do need them in your team, at least at some point during the season, in order to be successful. Now, this tier list is really based on the first 8 fixtures of the season. As the season goes on, like we say, these players might move up and down this tier list depending on how they're doing. So the first player we're going to look at is Cole Palmer. Now, he has gone up tremendously from last season in terms of price, but his price is still reasonably reflected in the ownership. I think Chelsea's fixtures in the first 8 games do look fantastic. They've got that tough game against Man City to start with, but other than that, there are some reasonable fixtures for the next 6 game weeks following. So you might be thinking, like I am personally in my team, I might have someone like Son for the first game week. He's got a good fixture. And then I might move from Son to Palmer for game week 2. And whilst it's good to plan in transfers, you don't want to plan in too many. But you do kind of need to have a bit of an idea of where you're going to go with your team. Now, 22 goals and 13 assists last season was phenomenal. And he did start 29 games, which wasn't actually that many considering his return. He only had 2 starts the season before. Now, a big reason for that was he was playing with Man City. And now he's playing with Chelsea. He's going in the can't blame you tier for me, and the reason he's not in the top tier is just because Chelsea is so all over the place, and we do kind of have a small sample size with Cole Palmer. Like, can he just keep dragging Chelsea through, or because he is a young player, you are going to have some inconsistencies now and then. He's not really had any adversity going for him just yet, so I will be interested to see, if he can reflect that 10.5 million price tag. I think being at that price as well kind of puts him off being in that top tier. I think if he was a little bit cheaper, he would be in there without a doubt, but I just think there's too much going on with Chelsea at the moment to put him in as a dead cert. Now, the next player we've got is Phil Foden, who actually comes in as $1 million cheaper than Cole Palmer at 9.5 million. Now, he's a lot less owned. He's almost half the ownership of Cole Palmer, even though he had 19 goals and 8 assists last season. For me, he's someone who I think you really do need to have a bit more time to kind of see how he goes in pre-season. I think for someone like Phil Foden, he is going to be the main person in Man City's teams, and now someone like Alvarez has gone. Be interested to see if Man City signs someone else. I think if they don't sign anyone else, he's going to go up this tier list. Someone who you really should be considering getting him in your team. I think if I had to choose between Foden and Palmer at the moment, I probably would go Phil Foden, but it's just because Man City, we don't quite know who they're going to be signing to replace Alvarez, if anyone. The next player in my tier list is Saka. Now, Saka, 10 million. I'm kind of amazed that he's cheaper than Cole Palmer, really. Now, I know that he's gone up in value. I think he's gone up maybe 1.5, 2 million from the start of last season. He was actually someone who I did have in my team all of last year, so I'm kind of don't want to have too much Saka bias going on, because that's sort of what's going to count against me moving forward in FPL. You've got to look at it each season on its own, but it is important to acknowledge that he has had 20 plus attacking returns in his last 3 seasons, so the consistency is there, and Arsenal's fixtures do look all right going into the start of the season. When we're talking about someone like Cole Palmer, maybe even Phil Foden, what we don't have with them is the consistency over a number of seasons for attacking returns. We do have that with Saka, so I think that is something that you do need to bear in mind, even with him being in between both those prices of Palmer and Foden. So he is going in, you won't win without him. Now, you obviously could possibly still win without him, but I just think for me, Saka is going to get you consistent returns. He's going to get you a goal or an assist most game weeks. Someone like Palmer might get you a hat-trick, but then he also might blank if Chelsea aren't performing for a few game weeks. So you could have a bigger upside for someone like Palmer, but for the consistency side, you probably should go with Saka. Now, next up is Mo Salah, 12.5 million. He is the most expensive midfielder, and at 35.2% ownership, that is quite low at the moment. He did have 16 goals and 12 assists last season, and 28 starts with 30 attacking returns is phenomenal. So for me, 28 attacking returns in his last 7 seasons is pretty brilliant. He is going in, you won't win without him. Now, for me, Salah, I'm trying to get him in my team personally. The problem we kind of have is that you've got to sacrifice maybe 2 other midfielder spots to get him in. So you could probably get Saka and Palmer, or Salah and someone that you kind of don't really want. So it's whether you think Salah's going to outperform everybody else by an absolute mile. It's a bit like what we said in the strikers with Haaland. He is still in that top tier because I think Liverpool, whilst we're yet to see what they're kind of made of fully, Salah is going to be one of those main players who's going to start for Liverpool no matter what. Their fixtures do look quite good. And, referees have actually been told to sort of clamp down on pulling in the box at corners and set pieces. So there could be a flurry of penalties at the start of the season, in which case you do want these penalty takers in your team just in case, more so than ever. The next player we've got is Eze. He's the cheapest player we've talked about so far. At 7 million, I think he is really good value. 32.8% ownership is really high. 24 starts last season, did have a bit of issues with injuries, and I'm concerned about Palace's transfers. Now Elise is gone, you could say, well, is that going to make Eze the main guy? Is he going to really sort of take, ownership of the attacking side of it? But I think if you're losing good players, it doesn't make your job any easier. If anything, other teams can focus on you more, and there's less players to kind of pass with and make these intricate plays and take up space and make runs for each other. So I'd be interested to see if Palace do sign anyone else, especially if they're going to sell someone like Gehi. Maybe Mateta is in the shop window now as well. And Eze himself might be, on the move. I think if Eze makes a move, it does kind of depend on where he goes as to whether he will be a viable Fantasy League option. So give me a week or so, because I'm just not sure of Palace's transfers moving forward. Now, next up we have Nkunku. Now, he is the 7th highest owned midfielder, which did surprise me and did actually make me put him in this tier list because I wasn't considering him. But considering a lot of you probably do have him in your team as well, I am concerned about Nkunku. I think at 6.5 million, if you can just get to 7 million and go for Eze, I think that is a much better option, just because, like we said with Palmer, Chelsea are a bit all over the place. You don't know if Nkunku's even going to start. I think a large portion of people going for him, probably because he's gone from a striker to a midfielder, maybe going to get some more clean sheet points. But what we don't have at all with Nkunku is any previous form in the Premier League. So he has it all to prove. And 6.5 million is quite cheap. I think I'd maybe be tempted just to, get someone like Harry Winks in at 4.5 million and then use that extra 2 million to upgrade to one of my, Foden, Palmer, Saka sort of options from another midfielder if I can, rather than spend 6.5 million on someone like Nkunku. So he is going in at a push, because you would have to do a bit of work to convince me to get him in over Eze. Obviously, if I don't have $500,000 to spare, that kind of makes the decision for me. But if money's no object and you're choosing between the two at that sort of price range, you've got to go for Eze. So next up, we've got Son at 10 million. Now, these midfielders really are making us have some tough decisions, because there's a good amount at 10 million. I think it really does also make you look at the strikers in a different light as well. That striker video we did, a lot of the strikers are so much cheaper than the midfielders, and yeah, there's less option there, but I think there is some good value to have from that front line. Son himself, 17 goals, 10 assists. You kind of know what he's going to be getting, what you're going to be getting from Son throughout a whole season. The problem I have is that 11.5 expected goals last season, he got 17 goals, which tells me he's outperforming his expected goals, which is great. But the problem you have with that is that that's hard to maintain. Now, he's done it over the course of a season, but will he continue it into this season? I think Spurs are the sort of team who probably will get off to a good start again and will do what they usually do, which is fall away sort of the second half of the season. The fixtures do look good, so I'm kind of high on Son at the moment. I think that Leicester, Everton, Brentford, games sort of early on in the season. Could see Son flying out the blocks. After then, it's whether you want to, stay with him or make a move to one of the other 10.5 midfielders. For me, he goes, I can't blame you, because you know what you're getting with Son. He is so reliable and he is that focal point of the Spurs attack. I think if they do sell Richarlison and so Son moves on up front, you might consider that to be an even better option. You might prefer it when he's playing on the left, cutting inside. Next up, I've got Garnacho. Now, he is someone I'm considering in my team at the moment. So at 6.5 million, I think when you compare him to Nkunku, I think why would you go Nkunku over Garnacho, really? Even though now he's less ownership, he's only 11.1% owned. 7 goals and 7 assists last season. I wasn't aware that he started 30 times, which bodes well moving forward, because he is a young player who you'd like to think would improve as long as Man United continue to improve as well, or start to improve, I guess you could say. But 30 starts does bode well. It shows that he's getting minutes under his belt, which is what you want primarily from your fantasy league players. You want them on the pitch. So he is someone who's on the pitch, and he did look quite good for Man United as well last season. I think a lot of his attacking returns came towards the end of the season, so hopefully he can continue that into next season. I'm going to put him in can't blame you, just because I think for that price, I think you could even make an argument for him over someone like Eze. If you've got 7 million left, would you want Garnacho on 0.5 million or Eze and no money in the bank? I think you could make a case for either, but I'd probably be leaning towards Garnacho just because, do I have a bit more faith in Man United? Yeah, I feel like I probably do, other than Crystal Palace. Doesn't mean that Crystal Palace can't have a good season. It's just that transfers, you don't really know who's coming in and going out the door at Palace at the moment. So next up, we've got Rodri, another 6.5 million midfielder. And I thought I'll put him in because last year he got 8 goals and 10 assists, 10 more attacking returns than 22-23. And he is someone who you think, oh, Rodri, really? But he had 34 starts, and everybody knows how well Man City do with him and how poorly they do without him. So if you're looking for someone for Man City who you think, I kind of just don't want the rotation risk, I want someone in who I know is going to play, well, he is a good option for someone who fits that criteria. At 6.5 million for 18 attacking returns, for someone who you would consider to be a defensive midfielder, he's not really playing like he's playing more of a box-to-box. Man City are Man City, and I think someone like Rodri should be considered as an option. So I can't blame you if you did go for Rodri there. We've got one more player coming up, and it's Anthony Gordon. So Anthony Gordon, for me, 7.5 million, that little bit above Eze in price. Is he worth it? Yeah, I think he probably is worth it. The problem we've got with Gordon, and he did have 23 more attacking returns last season than the season before, is he is in the mix for transfer talks. So I think really, let's just see a little bit. Give me a week or so for Gordon, and I think with that, whether he's going to be, still at Newcastle, there's talk of him going to Liverpool. I do really think that these players, all 10 of them, are reasonably good options. They're all good options you could put into your team. I think it really depends, how the rest of pre-season goes. I think if you are looking at Foden, Eze or Gordon, there's no reason why they can't be higher up in this tier list in a week or so. But the point is that we don't quite know as it stands where we're going to go and what they're going to do with it. So let me know if you think I've missed anyone off. Let me know if you think there's someone that should be in a different place in this tier list. Please do check out my latest FPL draft as well. If you're struggling to sort of get your team together, you want to see different opinions, I think it's quite a good one. The link should be on the screen and in the description right about now. Thank you very much for listening. If you've made it this far in the video, please drop it a like and subscribe. The support is greatly appreciated. We are a small channel trying to grow, and I will see you in the next one.